I grew up with my grandmother a lot of times when I was young. My parents were, struggling with a lot of things, so I had to stay with my grandmother, and I grew up quite a bond with her growing up. She was very allowing. She kind of spoiled me a little rotten. If I wanted something, she would get it for me. I got the call in 2005, October 18th, 2005, that she had passed away. I always knew it was coming. She was 91. But there's nothing like hearing the news. Regardless, you can prepare and prepare and prepare, but nothing prepares you for when you lose someone you care about. She couldn't eat solid foods anymore. She basically lost all her sight at this point. It was time. And for most of us, or for many of us, it will be more or less maybe like that. But nothing still prepares you for it.
The Christian faith is not the only faith that believes in an afterlife. All faiths have an idea of what awaits us beyond the grave. What makes Christianity different is that our hope in an afterlife is based on a person, not an idea. For the first time since Eden, a human being was given the power, the capacity to live forever with his physical body. We have all been given a false notion that only our souls go to be with heaven and then that's it. That's not it. This idea was adopted by mixes of Gnosticism and Hellenism, which both downplay the integrity of the physical world while elevating and exalting the spiritual world. This idea crept into cultural thought throughout the ages. Why is death even here? Has it always been a rule of nature? If so, why are we so opposed to it? We as humans are so appalled by the idea. For the most part, we fear it. Why? Because deep down inside, we know we're meant to live forever.
Saying goodbye to someone who dies is a very painful part of the human experience. People die through many means, whether it's accidents, disease, murder, sadly enough, or just plain old age. Death is inevitable. We're all going to experience it. But why do we treat it like it's such a horror? We can't help but do that. That's why zombie movies are so interesting and so appealing to us, I think, as a people, because they love the idea of the dead walking the earth. And yet there is something horrible about that. Why? Why do we, as the only creatures on this planet, have a need to understand death? Every other species in this world doesn't complain about it, but yet we do. We're the only species in this world that complains about death. Why? Maybe it's because it's not part of the natural condition. Maybe it's not part of what originally was. Oh, sure, we still get sick. We still grow old. We still die. In this temporal world, we still go through all the effects of our first parents, the original sin. Though we no longer are obligated to stay under its curse. Our physical nature is made to harmonize with our spiritual nature. It's not just a human being who cries at the sound of a beautiful love song. It's also the I, the person, Ralph Perez, in my case. For you, it's in your case. That the I is the key, the persona of who we are individually. It's the one thing that defines us. Now, the simple idea is that, and this is again a crude demonstration, this is nowhere comes close to how it really happened. Before the fall, mankind had three parts of him, and we're all composed of these three parts to this day: body, soul, and spirit. People tend to confuse the soul and the spirit as being the same thing, but it's actually not. Let's say the body is the red magnetic ring, the green is the soul, the blue is the spirit. And all three, before the fall, were in unison with God. All harmonious in being able to not only relate to God, but understand the spiritual world perfectly as well as the physical world perfectly. Both things harmonious. When Adam and Eve, or whoever, right, made the first original sin, when they committed the first original sin, something happened. A shift happened in the state of humanity. The spiritual life, represented by the blue magnetic peg, somehow became messed up and is now not in harmony with the rest of the magnetic of the other components of humans, of who we are as people. So as a result, now it's not perfectly aligned. It is off. Something is wrong. We're still spiritual beings. We're still beings with a soul. We are still physical beings. But because of this defect now in our nature, we have this thing now, this inability to comprehend perfectly the spiritual world along with the physical world. And that is why something called sin exists. Because now it's all messed up. What was once in harmony with God, in perfect unison, as represented by these three rings, representing the three conditions, the three states of humanity, now has gone off balance and has gotten all messed up, has become disharmonized. And as a result, the physical being is left all alone to tend for its own passions, for its own desires, for its own wants. That is why things like rage, lust, and all these kind of things happen. Especially sins of the flesh. The reason why sins of the flesh are so popular and so real is for two reasons. One, the physical, represented by the red ring, now cannot operate well with the soul and spirit. The spirit being the spiritual life of God, which cannot function now properly inside of us. The soul is the immaterial part of of humanity. So as a result, this is what's messed up. And that is the reason why, as a result, the body starts to decay over the period of 70 to 100 years, tops, maybe more, to some rare people. That's why death exists. So that is why God had to come back and reverse it by becoming a man himself and coming as the perfect man, the God-man, with all three in unity. He was able to show us how we can once again attain this at the end of our lives. That is why death is not the end. That is why on the day of the resurrection, everything will be made glorious again. Even the physical, even our physical bodies will be raised to life again, and it will be in this once again perfect, harmonious state. The Bible calls it the tree of life, that if we partake in the fruit of that, we'll live forever.
It was sin that brought death into the world. Ever since that time in Eden, we have suffered the effects. Over the ages, humanity has numbed it down to the most natural thing that happens. Death is inevitable. It's a byproduct of evolution to make room for new species over time. It is a cleansing of sorts of species that cannot adapt to new environments. Plants die, animals die, even the stars die. So if death is so natural, so matter of facto to the point that it has always been here from the start, why do we humans fear it so? Why do we fight the enveloping night? Why do we treat it like it's so unnatural? It is in this life where the choices we make take on a permanent fixture to our souls, which do not die. This is the part of us that keeps going after our bodies can no longer absorb its life-giving energies. The soul is the I. It's the individual. It's who we are. Who are we? Well, that depends on what we choose to do. Like what Batman once said.
It's not who I am.
It's what I do that defines me. Had to throw in that cameo there. When an individual person dies, they must undergo what is called the individual or particular judgment. It's different from the universal judgment at the end of the world because it's just about the individual and that person's choice. At the moment of death, that person knows immediately and fully what their choice for eternity is, with or without God. At that point, we either go to heaven or to hell to await the resurrection of our bodies.
Oh, you didn't know? We're getting our bodies back. We don't know how a body can reanimate, scientifically speaking, into a glorified being that will live forever. Or we don't know how that works. So how can we do this? How can we figure this out if we try to use the scientific method? Well, science has taught us that matter is nothing more than condensed energy compressed. So energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed, changed. Is it possible that the process of the resurrection of the body involves that dynamic? I don't know. We don't know. The church never made a declaration of it scientifically. I don't think it's in its place to. Could be wrong. There's so many questions, so many things.
What will heaven be like? Eye has not seen, ears have not heard, nor has it entered into the heart of man what God has prepared for those who love him. It will be something we will never grow bored or tired of. It will be a continuous, unending oneness with the Trinity. It will far exceed any happiness or pleasure we will ever have here on earth. What will hell be like? The smoke of their torment goes up forever. The fire is never quenched, and the worm never dies. The outer darkness is where the souls of those who do not want God goes, because they refused the alternative. Their choices are sealed at death. Their bodies will rise too, only to do the thing they preferred, to die forever. The book of Revelation calls it the second death. Hell is not a pleasant topic. It even goes against the idea of a loving God. What's crazy about that is that it was merciful, loving Jesus who spoke more about hell than anyone else. Most of what we know about hell and its nature came from the mouth of Jesus himself. If we are to take seriously his claim to be who he says he is, then we are also called to take seriously everything he says, even of the possibility that I may go to the outer darkness. This is the Garden of the Innocents, an area in St. Raymond's dedicated to the young, the very young, babies who did not get a chance to live their lives fully. Even this will end. Even one day, the pain and anguish of a mother and a father losing their young one as soon as they are born will be wiped away from their eyes. Those tears of grief, God himself will wipe away and reunite them with their child. This is the promise of the resurrection. This is the promise of what Jesus did on the cross so that we can all experience true life. Because again, this is just a temporary place for us. Their bodies are here. Their small bodies still laying here will one day rise to glory, to be reunited with their already glorified souls in heaven. Oh, day that will be. What a wonderful day that will be. Right behind me is a tombstone, but there's no body. It's just a memorial to all the innocent babies that have been killed by abortion or miscarriage. This tombstone is in front of this church as well as in many others that, again, is a testimony to the horrors of the modern day Holocaust of abortion. But it's also a promise that once again God will wipe away all tears from their eyes, because on the day of resurrection, even they will rise. the Eucharist, and I just thought of this not too long ago. Think about it. The Eucharist is the actual body and blood of Christ. Okay? Catholic belief holds that the Eucharist is the actual body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ. That means that when we consume the Eucharist, that we are consuming a resurrected, glorified body, because that's who Jesus is. He's a resurrected, glorified body, which chimes in well with what he said in John chapter 6, that he who eats my flesh and drinks my blood, I will raise him up on the last day. It seems that the Eucharist is actually, when we receive it, a preparation of our own bodies to be glorified in one with Christ. The Eucharist is an incredible topic. Definitely something to talk about at a later time.
Here's a thought experiment. Think for a minute the multitudes of people who have ever died. Ever. That's a big number. We're talking about thousands of years of death and all its variants, disease, accidents, age, crime. It comes upon us when it does. No one is prepared for it. Many people anticipate the end of the world without anticipating the end of their own personal worlds. Throughout the ages, people have talked about the end of time, the second coming. But people tend to want to talk and think about that end of the world as opposed to their own personal end of the world. Because whether Jesus comes back in this generation or not, we're going to meet him in a few more decades. That's all we have on this planet. That means something to us. And death is always that thing nobody likes to talk about. It's always the elephant in the room that people ignore. Because of what Christ did on the cross, because of the infusion of the fall of us all onto him who took the bullet so that we would no longer be cursed, we, as we close our eyes in this world on our death day, will open them again on the day. We don't know when that day is, but we long for it. We long for it when we feel joyous on a wedding day, at the cry of a newborn. We long for it with a sense of belonging, because deep down inside, we know this is where we came from. We long to go home. Heaven was what we were made for, not for anything else. This earth is only our temporary place. So there you have it, people, the resurrection at a glance. I know what many of you are saying. God, this is so depressing, so morbid, but it's far from it. It's the most amazing, wonderful, joyous thing we will ever experience. Let me put it to you in this perspective. Imagine the look of joy on Mary Magdalene's face when she encountered the risen Christ that Easter morning. Imagine the joy the disciples felt when Jesus appeared to them that evening. The joy of the two disciples that Jesus encountered on the road to Emmaus. These are the beginnings, the first fruits, as the scripture tells us, of who we're going to be, who we are going to become one day when God will call us all by name and tell us to rise and tell us to come to him. This is the heart's deepest longing. This is Revelation chapter 21. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, and how God will wipe away all tears from our eyes, and that there will be no more death, no more mourning, no more pain, for the old things have passed away. Death will be no more, and we will finally live forever in God's holy presence, seeing his face, which was honestly our built-in dearest, most eager longing, alongside us being with our relatives and friends again, whom we have lost. This is the time of salvation. This is the day that we all are looking forward to seeing. It's in our hearts. It's like a seed that's been planted, and it's waiting for the day for it to burst. Behold, I tell you a mystery. We shall not all fall asleep, we will all be changed in an instant, in the blink of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet will sound, the dead will be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. For that which is corruptible must clothe itself with incorruptibility, and that which is mortal must clothe itself with immortality. And when this which is corruptible clothes itself with incorruptibility, and this which is mortal clothes itself with immortality, then the word that is written shall come about. Death is swallowed up in victory. Where, O death, is your victory? Where, O death, is your sting? My abuela died on October 8th, 2005. I can't wait to see her again. I pray and hope to see you all too on that great day. Because on that great day, just like that empty tomb on Easter Sunday, all the tombs will one day be empty.